Welcome everyone to the Authentic as Fuck podcast. Welcome back, Jelena. What's
Hello.
up? Okay, so I
Um,
want to start with just to jump right in. A couple of things. We were talking a little bit about how there's really only a handful of lessons in life, and every story out there is just teaching one of these handful of lessons or something like that. So we can dive a little bit deeper into that, but we can start by talking about I'm sure we'll give a bunch of examples, but we'll start talking about this one example that you saw on TikTok.
yeah, I was sharing. Maybe some of you heard for Reesa Teesa. So she made 50
How do you
part
spell it?
Reesa
Mm-hmm.
Teesa.
Okay, I see.
So she made 50 parts serial about her being married to Pathological Liar. And so imagine she gained from those videos like several million followers with those videos. And so she was sharing her story in details in 50 parts, 10 minutes long. It was like an audiobook, like 5, 6, 7 hours of that.
Mm-hmm.
And I watched that. It really, it grabs your attention.
Which one is like what? What is she talking about in each one? Like one story?
I mean, it's one part of the story. For example, they met on some dating app. So how their first date went, because she was on the
Oh, so
way.
they're not all about like um they're not all about one lesson. Like each story is not one lesson. It's like
No. All 50 parts are about one or two lessons. So how she missed
does something
red
happen
flag.
in each one? Like does each video have like an example of the cinema lesson, or is it like basically one
Let
long
me think.
story?
I didn't think. No, I mean, multiple times she would mention this was the red flag, but I didn't
Mm-hmm.
take that into account. So, so that story is about small story is about how she was naive
Mm-hmm.
and maybe desperate, and she believed something that wasn't there.
Mm-hmm.
So, example of that, or example of how he would pretend like he was speaking to someone, some relative. So he would take the phone and say like, "Hey, what's up? Hey, so Risa is saying you hello. He's saying you hello. What's up?" And he would have
Mm-hmm.
these calls for like half an hour every day that weren't there. Nobody was on the phone. So she was explaining with that she wasn't. She didn't even think about, maybe double checking, or maybe, you know having conversation with other person because they were already living together and planning to get married and so on. So this is also the lesson how she didn't pay attention to some details. She just
Okay.
wasn't going into that.
Okay.
Or how she would explain if he promised to, they were searching for a house and she didn't have, or and he told her that he will take care of contracts because he has his guy or something like that. And eventually it just happened that it's, for some reason, it's not possible to do it. So many times where like there is some small little thing that kind of that's
How
strange.
does like each one of those short videos end? Like, does it end with like a conclusion, or just say, okay, I'll just continue on the next one? Do you know what I mean?
I think it depends. I think she would share a piece, like a chapter of the book. Let's say the first chapter is the first date. Second chapter is how he moved in because of
Got
COVID.
it. Got it. Yeah. So it's a story. It's like a
Yes.
chronological story.
Yes. So she had her timeline, and she
Hmm.
explained every part of their relationship from the beginning till the end, like a chapter of the book. So
So there some videos where there is no lesson?
I didn't go that much into details because usually I would cook, and listen. So
Hmm.
when it finishes, I just start new one.
Hmm.
But um I think there were videos where she would just stop them and say like, yeah, I will continue what happened with that in the next one.
Okay, so each one of those. So how many stories does she have total? Like 10 or like 30 or like more?
um I mean, what happened in her life, it was a roller coaster. So date, moving in, living together, uh getting pregnant, losing
All of
her.
those are stories, right? Like for example, when she
Yeah.
found out that she the moment when she found out that he was talking to somebody on the phone and there's nobody on the other line. Like that must have been a surprise, right? That's like, oh, what the fuck is he doing, right? And then like, and then from there, like that's the trigger, right?
Yeah.
Because the
Actually,
story
her
doesn't start
trigger.
until something unexpected starts.
Yeah,
Something
yeah,
unexpected has to happen first, and then the rest of it is the story.
yeah.
But if you're just having the same day you had yesterday, today, the same exact thing, everything is expected. There's no story there.
Yeah. I think that her trigger, so now that you say it like that, her trigger was once they went together to buy
Hmm.
a house, and he told her he can, I don't know, get loan from a bank from, I don't know, $750,000. 1700 17
Hundred and
I don't,
$70,000.
$700,000. Is that the
Okay.
number?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. That sounds about right.
Okay. Um, so he told her that. So that's why they went to see some larger houses together. And something didn't add up. So they didn't buy anything. But then the real estate agent talked to her because she was like, yeah, he told me he was giving you, he gave you that paper, and then that you should sign, blah blah blah. And she said like, that's not the practice, or that's not how we do. I mean, something is not adding up. So the real estate agent was the person that actually said to her, hey, whatever happens, like, just do your research. Something is not adding up here. If you're going to be my client, or two of you together, or nothing happens, just do your research. So that was, I think, the moment when she actually was starting to investigate more thoroughly, like, what is going on, why
Hmm.
never anything finishes,
Hmm.
you know.
Great storyteller. Like by
Yeah.
the way, but like for somebody to remember that, I think for somebody to be able to, first of all, what she's doing is exactly what we're trying to practice at Night Owl Nation, right? Like, because for example, I think that most people will live life in a relationship with some pathological liar or whatever it is, right? Some crazy,
Yeah.
and they're gonna be so overwhelmed by like they're gonna be so overwhelmed by love or whatever infatuation that they're not gonna see those things, right?
Yeah.
That the fact that that moment when the real estate agent says you should do your own research, right? That's a significant moment, right, of this
Yeah.
story, of this longer story. And it's a significant moment because it was the first red flag. She felt something about it, and also it ultimately led to her realizing like the situation she was in. It also led to her investigating all the other triggers, all the other
Hmm.
memories. So it's like I think most people have trouble finding that, when they're going through life, and something like that happens, that real estate tells you, oh, you should do your own research. Like things happen like that. Those things happen to us all the time. It's just that we ignore it. We ignore it all the time.
Yeah.
The fact that she didn't ignore that and she actually was aware of it, and now she's telling a story about it, is like, and that's why the 5 second moment is so important, because that was a 5 second,
Yeah.
like, without a doubt, it's a 5 second moment when somebody tells you something and you react a certain way to it.
There's one moment when I was like, this is interesting, because I watched her 50 parts series like from the beginning till the end, and I was reliving in my imagination that those situations, and I could relate to her like, oh wow, this happened to you, and this and this. So I kind of understood.
Can you give us an example of one, like, that she said, which you understood because of the story?
um well, she desired to be taken care of. Like she wanted a guy that would take care of her. So this was her need.
Hmm.
And on her first date, um, her tire like flat,
Hmm.
and before on the way there, so she needed to go aside and she called him to say that she cannot come because of her tire. And he said like, don't worry, I'll come to help you out. So he went to her. So he fixed her tire, maybe changed for another one or something like that. They went to a gas station. He said don't worry, let me fix this for you and buy you a new tire. And she was like, oh my god, so this is how maybe fairy tale is starting, because somebody is
Hmm.
really caring, see that you are in some, you know, um, place that you something happened and they help you out. So he was showing that you can count on him. So after that, because COVID started and they started living together, because they should choose, should they be in one place or the other. It was only they only started dating, but it was like, okay, let's not be alone. And I know the feeling of being alone during COVID, and I hated it. So I would crave some company, like give me some human being, just not to be completely alone. And they decided to be in her place, because he was having some studio apartment, he was searching for houses. This is what he told her. So they started living in her place. And he said, but don't worry, I'll take care of rent, of like some other household, I don't know, things. And she was like, oh my god, because she was living alone and it was a burden for her, he just took that burden from her. So I understood that as, okay, we are in a specific situation. Nobody could predict COVID, and nobody could predict what is going to happen with my car. But he's there, he's present, and he's showing that he wants to commit. So this is where I I could relate why this was something she felt and it was important for her. Um,
This has nothing to do with the relationship problem, though, right? This is just one
yeah,
thing about her that you relate to her, but it's not like
yeah, I know this is. But what was your question? Then maybe I
because
didn't.
it's not like it has nothing to do with the lesson on relationships. Like, do you understand what I mean? It's
Oh,
just like
okay, okay,
it's
okay.
something that about her that you relate with, but she didn't teach you any new lesson through it or anything like that. Do you understand what I mean?
Well,
Or she
okay,
didn't teach you any lessons you knew that reminded you of it. I guess is what I'm trying to
okay.
say.
Let me think. Um,
But it's still a good example
okay.
because here's the thing, right? Like you could have learned that lesson, but you just maybe just didn't realize at that time. It's just like one of the lessons that a lot of women learn, and when I say a lot, like just few women that I've talked to, is
Okay.
they every woman I think thinks that they want one thing, but when they really want something else, and I'm not saying all women, but a lot of women, right? So Gigi's not that type of person. Gigi's not. Gigi knows what she wants, and she'll say what she wants.
Mm-hmm.
She's not gonna pretend to want something else just because
Yeah.
that's what society expects you to say or something. She's not gonna do that. She's just gonna say what she wants. She's gonna do what she wants, and she's completely fine with it. She
Mm-hmm.
doesn't give a fuck, right? But so Gigi's not part of this. But I have talked to other women who thought what they wanted. It's kind of like that Chris Rock. Chris Rock had a stand-up comedy like 10, 15 years ago where he talks about this. He says that if you if you take care of your woman and you buy stuff for her and you pay for her stuff and you open the doors, blah, 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 they're gonna be like, I don't need to be taken. What do you think you are, my daddy? I don't need to be taken care of. I'm an independent woman. I'll pay for my own stuff. Blah, 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 right? I think this is what I think a lot of women think that they want. I think a lot of women think that what they want is financial independence. I don't need somebody to
Mm-hmm.
give me allowance. I don't need any guy to pay for me. I don't need anyone to open the door for me. Like But then in reality, at some point in their life, they realize actually what I want is I do want to be taken. And then she's like, he's like, oh, if you don't pay for anything and you're broke and blah, blah, then they're like, I need to be taken care of.
Mm-hmm.
I need a real man. You know what I mean? Like, so that's kind of like, that's kind of what it is, right? So now that's a lesson that some people might have learned. They might have been like, oh, I thought I was this independent woman, like boss babe and blah, blah, blah. But actually, the reality is I want to be taken care of. I want a man who's going to blah, 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 whatever, right? Good. At least you know. At least now you know what you want, right?
Yeah.
You've learned that lesson, right? Now, when she's telling the story, that can be a little bit of a reminder for you. Be like, oh, yeah, yeah, I went through that
Mm-hmm.
too. Do you know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? I know what she means.
Yeah.
Do you understand what I mean? Because when she says that, here's the difference, I think. Well, I'm glad we got here. If I walk up to, if I went out in the street and I walk up to women in their 20s, a
Mm-hmm.
hundred of them, like 100 women in their 20s, and I ask them, like, do you want a man to take care of you, or would you rather be the one that makes the money and take care of them, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, we would have to like formulate this question, but almost all of them will say, "I don't need anyone's money. I'm gonna be an independent woman. I want to make my own money. I don't want anyone to take care of me." That's what they're going to say. Okay,
Yeah.
if you just ask, poll them or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if I go up to them and I tell them her story, right? If I tell
Yeah.
her story, and then say, "Hey, can you relate to her? Do you feel like that?" Sometimes they're gonna be like, "Oh yeah," blah, blah, blah. And they might change their mind. Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah.
And that is the beauty of a story, because whatever life lesson is, if I say it in words, a lot of people are just gonna be like, "Oh no, that's not me. No, I don't have that problem. Oh, that's not me. Oh no, I don't know what you mean." But then as soon as you tell a story version of that same word, they're gonna be like, "Oh my gosh, oh yeah, that is me. I'm like that too." Do you
Mm-hmm.
understand what I mean? And that's the whole point of telling a story.
Okay. Yeah, I see.
So I'm glad you showed that part, because when she was telling that story, and I don't even know if this was the point, but she was able to say, um, one of my needs is I need a man. I want a man who's going to take care of me
Yeah.
financially, right? And if she just said that, and that's where she left it, all the comments would be like, it's like gold digger, blah, blah, blah,
Right.
blah, blah, blah,
Right.
But then, because she told it in a story format, I'm sure a lot of people is like, "Oh, I feel like this too," and you know what I mean?
This is it. So that's why it was. I could relate when I was listening to her story. Of course, she was still independent woman. She could pay that rent, and she was going to work every day. But she felt nice when you have a problem with your car and someone just fix it for you.
Hmm.
So she's
But
like that.
I think the reason why the story is so important is because all of these things, right? Here's the thing. So this is what I'm starting to understand. Remember before I said there's like there's like two ways you can teach something, right? So one is, I want to teach you a life lesson. Like,
Mhm.
"Hey Jelena, here's a lesson. My life lesson to you is to figure out, you know, like, do you need somebody who's going to take care of you, and kind of like, I guess, be your protector or whatever it is, or do you want somebody who's like your equal partner, and like you're both independent, and you both
Mhm.
make your own money, and you don't, like, what do you want, right? And maybe you don't know the answer yet, but now let me tell you a story, right? And then I tell you a story, and then
Mhm.
you try to figure out. But so this type of life lesson. This is a life lesson, right? Like some wisdom or some shit like that. They're very simple. They're like,
Yeah.
"Hey, what do you want?" Or like, "Hey, like what makes you happy?" Or these kind of like, or do unto others what you want done to you, right? Like, these type of lessons are very simple. They're very, mm, it's just one liners, right? But when you
Mhm.
put it into a story, it gives a lot of context, and then it gives it a lot of color, so you know what these simple words mean, right? But if I were to teach you how, let's say I wanted to teach you how to ride a motorcycle. So you get on the motorcycle, and I say, hit this
Yeah.
button, and then go this to start the fire. And then, like, when you want to turn left, these are actual skills that I'm telling you. Now, they're not short and simple. They're much more complicated. There's a lot of steps to it and things like that. But but they're black and white, meaning there's only one right way to do it. There's only one right way to push this button. Okay,
Yeah.
when you're learning a skill, there's only one right way to put this shoelace through this hole. Like, yes, it's a long many steps of instruction, but each step is very clear. You know exactly what you need to do. Whereas in life lessons are not. They're very simple. The whole lesson is just one step.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that one step is super confusing. There's so many nuances to it. And one of those nuances, and the nuance is like this. Every one of those things are just all balanced. They're a spectrum. Everything is a spectrum. So for you, the topic that you're talking about, okay, do I want somebody who uh who will take the financial responsibility of the household, or do I want to be the one to do that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when it comes to that, like it's a spectrum, because some girls maybe want to be all the way over here where she makes all the money, she makes all the decision, and she's like the boss of the house. She wants to, like, maybe what she wants is that. Maybe she wants total control, right? Like Hillary Clinton, right?
Yeah.
And then maybe on the opposite end, maybe this woman wants everything to be taken care of for her. Like if she's a princess, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Like she doesn't want to even lift her finger, right? She doesn't want to make any decisions. And then everything in between, right? And then everyone has their own little, like, maybe maybe some girls are gonna be like, you know maybe some girls doesn't care about how much money they make, but they do care about, like, you know how much they step up to protect the household, or to take care of the family, or something, like it could be as simple as, remember, like I was saying, like, we're Gigi and I was at the airport, and Gigi had to go walk over to the front desk to, like, because they were complaining to her about some dog. And just as simple as me just being there next to her to support her, right? Rather than, like, just
Mm-hmm.
having her taking care of it by herself or something like that, right? Like, even in the tire situation, like somebody to go there and just be there for her and things like that. It's better than just like, oh, you take care of it yourself. Oh, you're you're an adult, you can take care of it yourself. Like, not like that, or something like that. Or what is the reason why? Maybe for some people it's just that, um I want to know that I'm gonna be okay. That I want to know that if I have kids with you, that they're gonna be okay. That you're not just gonna take off one day and, um and, like, screw us
Yeah.
over, right? Like, there's that kind of safety. So there's a lot, right? But everybody has to. It's complicated. But ultimately, the short answer is, you need to know how much you need to be taken care of, and you need to find somebody who's gonna do that for
Yeah.
you, right? So that's the lesson. But if you tell a story like this, some people will be like, "Oh, okay, I get it now. Yeah, yeah, I need that." Or somebody will be like, "No, I don't need that." Right?
Yeah. Um. So I guess there is. This is maybe not connected. I guess there is a lesson there if a person can still feel independent even if they let somebody take care of them, because if somebody feels that only if I do this alone I'm independent, it means that once somebody else does that for them they feel like they take it too personally, like this is the proof that they cannot do it, or that
Yeah, yeah,
somebody
yeah, yeah. I mean,
see
we can
them.
we can go deeper into this, and the reason why some people
Yeah.
want more independence, but some people want more freedom, some people want more safety. Like, obviously, we can dive deeper into
Yeah.
this conversation.
By the
But the
way.
point I was trying to make is, how do you get some point across to somebody, right? Because in order for you or anyone listening to this to even raise the questions, they're like, do I want that? Do I not want that? How much of it do I want? In order for somebody to even raise that question, first they have to accept that, oh yeah, I do want certain level of being taken care of in my life. Like, because if somebody is like in the mindset of, like, I don't need anybody, I'm independent, blah, blah,
Mhm.
blah, they're not even gonna you know try to think about that, because they already believe that they are that way, right?
Yeah.
So in order for me to even think about, be even open to the possibility that, oh, maybe I do need to be taken care of, maybe I do need this, maybe I do want this, I have to open up my mind enough to even go there and think about it, right?
Yeah.
So what I'm trying to say is, what is the story that's gonna get somebody from this person who doesn't even want to think about it, who's like, no, I don't want anybody to be in control of me, blah, 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 to here where, oh, maybe I do want that. Maybe I should look into this. Blah, blah, blah. How do you get them from here to here? That's where a story comes in.
Yeah.
Do you understand what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Once you're here from here to here, then yeah, you can do all the work of the deep work of like going through each step and learning all of, yes. But you're not even gonna do that until you had your mindset changed. And that's what story is for.
I had one small epiphany moment. So I watch YouTube a lot, and so many podcasts are long. So if I play that on my phone, or if I want to play some music, usually I need to also text something to someone, so I need to get out of the app so it pauses, and then I text, and then I go again, and then there are commercials, and then I need to like wait 7 seconds and then skip. So this is boring, boring, boring. And I was like, okay.
You
And I
gotta
cannot
install
watch
ad
my
block.
I mean, on your phone, I don't think I know how to do it, if it is possible. Um, so, and I think even on computer, I had ad blocker, but now they show you like you need to turn off your ad blocker
Oh,
for
really?
this to work. So I needed to delete that, because then this is also one another process. You need to skip that for the whole process to start. Um, so it's painful, you know. And I was like, let me try YouTube Premium. Let me just try. They have like 1 month free to see if it's worth it. And I was like, when I had like YouTube, I remember I was in a bar having my coffee and listening to something, having something to write on some notes, and YouTube was doing everything for me. I could like listen and still answer to something, some people on my phone. I could on my watch, I could press pause. I don't even to touch my phone if I don't want to. If I want to play music, there is like playlist. Do you feel like this or like that? This is from what you usually listen. We made you a playlist, and I was in heaven. I was like, oh my god, this is what I wanted. Like somebody took this burden off me,
they
and
they specially designed it like that, probably, so that you'll have that experience.
I was like, I'm taken care of. Like, please take YouTube, take care of me, and this is it. So so after that free trial month, I'm like, okay, I'm going to have this YouTube to take care of me no matter what. So so for me, this was like, if something can take off this burden, like not to have to deal with anything of this, please, please, I don't want to be independent. I don't want to skip commercials. Like, just do it. Um,
And
this reminded me of how it feels when somebody take this burden off,
oh,
even
okay,
if
okay,
it's
got it, got
small.
it, got it. I see what you mean. Yeah. But I'll tell you this, right? There is a difference between different people. Like I didn't realize this also, but there is like a clear difference between how a woman think and how a man thinks, and also like how individuals think. How, even amongst men and even amongst women, individuals think so differently. Some people might look at that experience and be like, oh my gosh, how nice it is that all of this are done for us. But then there are people who out there who might experience that and be like, oh, I didn't really feel any difference. Like they don't really care about being taken care of. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then there are some people out there who might see that experience, be like, I don't like this. I need more control. I don't want everything to be done for me. Like I want to be able to stop the video if I want to, and a text message it. You know what I mean? Like it's so so everyone's different. Everyone has a different level of how much. I mean, like now we're going into the because what we're talking about right now, you and I, like this level of like
Mhm.
being taken care of. It this spectrum is between freedom and safety. On one end, you have 100% safety, zero freedom. On the other one, you have 100% freedom, zero safety.
Mhm.
Okay, where do you want to be in that? You know what I mean? And different people are different. Like I would even argue like that most people actually don't want freedom, right? Like we think that you think that like everyone will automatically choose freedom, but actually most people don't want freedom. Do you understand what I mean? They would sacrifice some freedom in order to get some safety, and that's what a government is essentially. When we live in a government, we're basically saying that if the government fucks, like government can do whatever, like the government can tell me to go get a vaccine, and I have no freedom. I have to do it. If they tell me to do it, I have to do it. But to a certain degree, the government is also going to protect me,
Yeah.
right? That's that's the that's the balance that we're trying to find, right? And some people might be like, no, I don't want the government to tell me to take vaccine. I don't want the government to tell me to stop in a red light. I don't want the government to tell me that I can't get an abortion. I don't want the government to tell me anything. I'll do whatever I want. But at the end of the day, if somebody invades my house and kills me, that's my fault too. It's like I'll take care of myself, right? Like
Yeah.
that's the other extreme, right? So yeah, I mean everyone's somewhere in that spectrum. So that's the real conversation if you wanna have it. I guess what I'm trying to say is what I was trying to say before is there are a lot of women who actually, if you were to look at that scale, they're actually more a little slightly towards the I want a little bit less freedom and more safety.
Mhm.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they're I don't think they're willing to admit that. Do you know what I mean? And that's really the the crux of it. But then there are also some men like that too, you know. And there are also some women who doesn't want safety. They just want freedom. I don't know what I don't know why I brought this up. But that's like the specifics of what we were talking about.
Yeah. I don't know.
What were you saying? Wait, what were you saying before? Oh, the scale, like the like where you are on the scale. Yeah. Yeah, I guess what I was trying to say is this. The reason why we need stories for these simple one lessons, but they're like very nuanced, meaning there's like a balance, right? There's like a spectrum, right? Versus these kind of more skill learning skills is a little bit different. Like you're not going to teach skills through storytelling, through telling stories, right?
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
you are gonna teach some life lessons that's gonna make you go aha through stories. And I guess what I was trying to say is sometimes when we hear a story, like I said before, like if I were to tell you, like, hey, don't you want a guy who makes a lot of money, who can take care of you, and blah blah blah, and that most girls are gonna be like, no, I don't care about that. Well, I don't care. Like I don't
Mhm.
need a guy to take care of me. Like that's how most young girls are gonna think because at that age they don't really care about money yet. And the thing is, but then when I tell a story like what you said, right? Like, hey, like if you go change your tire, and let's say you're a student and you're broke, and this guy comes to you and he's like, okay, I'll go, and he talks to the guy, he takes care of everything, and he pays the bills and blah blah blah. Like, how would that make you feel, right? Or the second one about like, let's say you were, you know,
Mhm.
you know, you or on the other hand, let's say you were buying a house or you're buying a car, and it turns out that um it turns out that the 100% of the burden is going to be on you, and your partner has no financial responsibility. Like, how would that make you feel, right? So
Mhm.
if you put it into a specific scenario, then now that simple lesson, like for me, for example, I can say a lesson like, let's use this one as an example. Like if I can say, I mean, it's not a lesson from me, but I can say a lesson like, hey, like maybe what you really want is a guy who can take care of you, right? Who will make more money than you, or blah blah blah. Let's say I say it like that. This person is not gonna have it. They're gonna be like, son, you're wrong, blah blah blah. But then all of a sudden, let me tell you a story. There's this woman on TikTok who, and then
Mm-hmm.
she
Mm-hmm.
started, she went to a car shop and they were changing tires. This is what happened, blah, blah, blah. Or like, let's say I tell a story around that topic and then ask them, hey, do you think that maybe you want somebody like that? Then their answer might change. They'll be like, oh, actually, yeah, I do want that. Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
And, what just happened there was that person didn't realize that when I say, hey, do you want a partner who's going to take care of you? And then here's an example story of what taking care of looks like.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I connected those two dots.
Yeah.
Before that, this was disconnected. They didn't even know that this is what being taken care of looks like. They didn't
Mm-hmm.
even know that. Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah.
I guess that people just don't understand. Like when I tell the story of like, okay, I'm gonna eat healthy today, and I'm gonna do my sit-ups today,
Mm-hmm.
and then tomorrow I'm gonna do it again, do it again. I did it for 100 days in a row, okay, and then I look at my stomach, and it's the same. It's not even close, right? Like it's nowhere near, right?
Okay.
How does that make you feel, right? Like how would that make you feel, right? Well, that's what it feels like to post 100 days on Instagram and not grow, and everyone has to go through it.
Mm-hmm.
And if I say it like that, now somebody listening might be like, "Oh shit! Like I never even thought of it that way. Like that's true,
Yeah.
right?" Because because there was a completely wall between the truth and the what their idea was. So I connected the dot between those two, and that's what storytelling is. I guess is what I'm trying to say.
I'm probably biased, but I think that to be successful in like social media on Instagram, you need to go through mud, which means that you can post something that is terrible, but if you post that enough number of times, something that is terrible, even if it's terrible, still some people would like it and you will grow your account. So even if you don't have anything to say, just be consistent, go through mud and be in mud, swim there, and
Yeah, that's another one. Yeah,
you will make it.
yeah. Like that is another lesson in life. Do you understand what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like you have to, and then like if I can find another example of where that also happens, then you know that that's when you're gonna like. But it's like learning anything, right? When you if you learn a new language, that's how it's gonna be. Like in the beginning, nobody's gonna understand you.
If I think about one mayor in one
Hmm.
small town in Serbia, so he was collecting like garbage, but not like a worker, like a person that collects something that goes through trash and search for things. Um, and eventually he met when he was young. Eventually he started hanging out with some criminal people, and then he did some business with them. He was like like a person that
Like corrupted.
yeah, but like you have a guy that can do whatever you told them to do, that
Okay.
kind of person. And eventually he was doing that long enough and he survived. Like I think like a like when they say cockroaches will outlive
Mhm.
everybody, like he was like a cockroach. So after that, as he was, being in that area for quite some time, he was like, okay, let's go to politics, let's make a party. And he made his party, and eventually, with some money, some connections, la 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 la, he made some interviews, some terrible interviews. Imagine a person in interview says, I can bring whoever I want to sing for me, to I
Hmm.
can bring Mozart.
Hmm.
And he literally thought that Mozart is alive. So in the interview, and eventually he's mayor, and he's mayor of that town for maybe 20 years now. 50, 20 years.
Okay.
So he's still like, he's still that cockroach, but he just did that long enough, and he got
I
supporters.
see what you mean. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, yeah. So that's another lesson. It's, I guess what needs to happen is, I think you can learn lessons that you haven't learned before through hearing a story. But I think it's really hard to teach a lesson that you haven't learned before.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you can learn lessons that you haven't learned before, but I think it's extremely hard to teach a lesson that you haven't learned before. But yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, it's. I mean, that's just. I always say that, like, people focus so much attention on the quality and not enough on the quantity. You know, but
Yeah.
it, I don't care how bad you are at something. I really don't care. Like, you will be good at it if you do it long enough. You know what I mean? And like, kind of, you know, 16 years of school have taught us that. Like, almost all of us in the world were forced to go to school for 16 years of our lives. Like, most, almost no kid wants to voluntarily want to go to school. They were forced, right? But because they were forced, they learned a shitload of stuff. Are
Yeah.
all of them smart? No. Most of them are dumb, but you do it long enough, you're gonna learn. Do you know what I mean? Like, you know how complicated English is? Like, English is way harder than a programming language. To If you speak English, you should know how to code, because coding is just language
Mm-hmm.
with, except English has like, whatever, 20,000 words, right? Whereas in, um, a programming language only has 500 words. So English is just a much, much, much easier sorry, programming language is just a much, much, much easier version of a real language like English.
Mm-hmm.
So if you can learn English, you can learn programming. So why is it that you learn English but you can't learn programming? Because you were forced to learn English and you weren't forced to learn programming. That's literally the only difference. But if you were forced every single day to learn programming, no matter what, whether you want to or not, at some point you will know how to code. And it's the same with writing, and same with designing, content creating, anything.
So I was thinking about a lesson, because when this is another topic that we talked before we started this podcast. When I told you that I currently am not going to try to create or to post anything on social media.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
Um, and I think that, you know, at least for now, my feeling is that I don't care to do it. So I can, you know, it's hard for me to force myself to do something that I don't care to do it. I care
Okay.
to talk with you, to talk about critical thinking, to exchange ideas. I can force myself. This is also like you need to sit in one place for 3 hours and to really attentively listen and to pay attention to details. And I write down something not to forget to mention to you. So this is something that also demands some effort that I can put myself and I'm willing to do. But to sit and to think about an idea and to craft it just to post that on social media, I don't care for that. At least for now, in that, maybe in that format, maybe in that way of doing it. So I guess my lesson for now in my life is just because I can do something doesn't mean that I should do something, because it's not only capability that it's in the equation, it's also if you care about that or
Yeah.
not.
I mean, that's one of the lessons. Just because you can do something doesn't mean you should do it. But there are other lessons here too.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I guess the related to that, but more important is like, well, you should make content if you know why you're doing it, right? Like,
Yeah.
don't make content just for the sake of make content. Like, otherwise, what's
Yeah.
every human already is driven by motive. So, um, I mean, we can talk about that. We can talk about that, your content creation motivation and things like that, or we can continue to talk about um like how this affects storytelling.
You, however you want that to be.
Like, I believe, okay, so to finish my point from earlier, the whole spectrum thing, the balance thing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think the secret to life is you living life. There's all these areas in your life that has different spectrums, right? And it's really literally all about finding the balance in that spectrum. When to push, when to pull, when to push back.
Yeah.
Like knowing when to push and knowing when to pull back, right? And in every sense, it's like that. In every relationship, like, for example, um, you go to the gym, like you you making the decision to wake up in the morning and say, oh, should I go to the gym or should I not?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now you have a decision to make. Do I push and force myself? Do I pull back? Or where do I find the balance, right? Let's say somebody's having a really interesting conversation and then you want to get involved. Do you just jump in and ask a question, or do you pull back and wait? Like,
Mm-hmm.
how much do you push? How much do you pull back, right? When you're asking somebody out on a date, okay, do I just pull back and not ask at all? Or do I push and keep asking every day? Right?
Yeah.
Like, when you want to ask for a sale, ask for the opportunity. When you DM somebody to see, oh, can I be in your Instagram story? Like, everything in life is like that. And if all you're doing is pushing, 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 pushing all the time, then people are going to push you away, and you're
Mm.
not going to have a lot of opportunity. But if all you do is stay in your home and never push and always be reserved and never say anything in your mind, you're not going to get any opportunity either. It's somewhere in between. Once you've found that perfect balance in between, that's when things start to happen, and that's when it brings, in whatever you're trying to achieve, whether it's a relationship, dating, life, career, that's when it's going to bring success,
Yeah.
right? When you found the right balance. Understood? And there's a lot of different balance to be managed all over the place.
Mm.
It could be about asking for sale. It could be about learning the skill. Or should I go to the gym today? Should I work on this project today? Or should I make content today or not? And in every little thing, there's one end of the extreme and the other end of the extreme. And somewhere in between, you have to make the decision, right?
Yeah.
What makes this so hard is that I don't know how far to push, how far to do this, right? Number one. And number two, I don't even know if we're working with the same chart, same scale. Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
why it's so helpful to that's why the story is so helpful. If somebody tells you a story,
Mhm.
if I like that story that we were talking about, right? Um
About Reesa Teesa and about Tyre.
I mean, like pretty much every story that I say, I tell. But let's use that one as an example. Reesa Teesa.
Yeah.
Like with her, let's say that the example of yeah, can you give example story of a lesson that she learned that was relatable for you?
It reminded me of some small things that I noticed, but I just like brush it away. Like don't don't double check it. So this is thing that where I related, because her lesson is that there were multiple little signs that she could pick up, and those red flags, and she could check her feelings about that. Something was triggering there, but she just didn't want to make a big deal out of that. So I think this lesson reminded me of some small things where I don't double check for something where I have a feeling about someone.
What
Or
was the story around that?
um, for example, that he would having this imagine this calls that weren't actually happening with some person, and he with some relative, and she would never actually talk to that person. Every time it was like him, he was on the phone, and she was listening to the conversation like him, but never hearing anything, or never seeing, or never visiting this person.
Mm-mm-mm.
This is like, this is kind of a okay, you know, maybe if you are married to someone, you want to have a conversation in person with a relative from your husband. But if especially if they talk
So that's like
every
okay, yeah, it's a little bit more than just him talking on the phone. It sounds more like that she hasn't met his friends or his family or something like that.
she met.
I mean, this is extra, but
Yeah, but you can always justify that with COVID, because it was in the moment when COVID started.
mm,
So, but truth to be told, there was no video calls, because I remember when I was in COVID
how
period,
did she find out?
she found out about that those calls were fake, not from him, but actually from, I think, his brother, because
Okay.
she somehow find his contact, and when everything was already like, when the peak point was in the peak point of their relationship, like going downhill.
Mm,
So when everything started going downhill, um then she called her his brother, and then she started to collect pieces, but from other people.
got it. Okay, so the hard thing is this, right? So the lesson that you learned is that so one of the lessons that you learn from hearing her story is like how often we ignore these red flags, right?
Yeah.
Like that's kind of like it's the lesson is that ignoring red flag can be is super easy, that it happens to all of us or
Yeah.
something like that, right? So then if you want to teach this lesson, then you have to give examples of like the one you just gave right now with that red flag. I don't know if that's a red flag that most people would have ignored, right? But you have to give an example. He's like, hey, do you ever do this? It's
Mm-hmm.
like, I'm sure it's no biggie, and then you just ignore it, right? Like tell, but be more specific about that scenario. Like,
Yeah.
hey, does
Yeah.
this ever happen to you? And your boyfriend says this, and you're like, oh, okay, whatever, right? Next, right? um, because the reason why you do that is because when you say a lesson like, hey, most of us ignore red flags all the time, and that's the reason why we could have prevented issues. Like we can't prevent issues that we could have prevented, right? Something like that. If you just say that, then most people are listening and be like, yeah, but that's not me.
Mm.
That's not me. I didn't like I saw the red flags. It's like it's not me.
Yeah.
Well, for example, and then you give an example of something that they would ignore, right?
Yeah.
Then you go, then that person might be like, oh yeah, that's true. I do ignore that too. It's like, oh my gosh. And then that's when that person is gonna start going like, oh, I never thought of it that way. Oh yeah, maybe. And then they start to go back, right? But what you just did there is that, yeah, again, what I'm trying to say is when you say, oh, there's all these red flags, there like a lot of people red flag this, ignore these red flags and gets into situation, and by the time they realize it's too late, all of these things, right? When you say all of this, a lot of people are just going to listen to them and be like, yeah, that doesn't sound like me. That sounds way too extreme.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
not me. That's not me. That's not me. Until you give them an example, which sounds exactly like you, then now that person listening is gonna be like, oh my gosh, that's me, right? And that's the point of the story. The point of the story is to give them an example to show that you're also like that too. If
Mm-hmm.
this example that I just told you resonates with you, that means you're also doing that. And that's the whole point of the story, is to make them not just see
For example,
the
what?
lesson,
Okay.
but the story that comes with that lesson. The story is almost an instructional manual for the lesson. The 10 Commandments are the lesson in the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
Every story in the Bible are the instruction for how to use these 10 Commandments in your life,
Yeah.
right? So the lesson is the 10 Commandments. Every story we tell is an example of how we use these lessons in our lives.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Um. One thing that when I was hearing her story and as it was developing and I was like sucked in the story, let's say like that. So I was looking from her perspective. Um but on the other hand, when I watched another um TikTok content creator that I follow, so he shortened that the whole 50-part series into like 2 minutes. And as he was listing like also what actually happened on the way, like just okay, so imagine this and then it happened this, and then every time he was talking to a person, you never say, hey, let me like talk to him too, or 5 times you try to buy a house, nothing happens because of some paperwork, some logistics. Like, isn't that awkward? And then when he narrowed those mistakes she also missed uh to do something about them, it looks totally different. Like, okay, lady, so what were you thinking? So signs were
That's what
quite
I mean.
in front
But
of
that's
you.
what I mean. Without the stories, the lesson without the stories, it sounds like that doesn't apply to me.
Yeah.
It sounds like, oh, that's not a lesson that I need to learn.
Yeah.
But as soon as you put a story to the lesson, that's when people are going to be like, oh my gosh, that's happening to me. I need to learn this lesson too.
Yeah. Imagine something like this. So there was he was talking to his brother. He would get up every morning at 6 a.m. and she would get up a little bit later, like at maybe 7 a.m. or 7:15, let's say that. So from 6:15, maybe it's not like the timing is not so clear, but from
Mm-hmm.
6:15 to 7 a.m., during that period he would say he would have like daily or almost daily conversation with his brother for half an hour, where he would talk like, hey, what's up today? Oh, you're making barbecue for weekend. Okay, so we are here, like nothing spectacular, like blah blah blah. So
Mm-hmm.
she is sleeping, or maybe she's kind of in a sleepy mode. She's probably not talkative, and she doesn't say, hey, let me talk in like 6:30 in the morning with your brother.
Mm-hmm.
This is their routine. So who would have that idea to say like, okay, let me wake up, and even though I just want to sleep, let me talk to your brother? Nobody. But these calls were fake. He never ever called like literally his brother um to talk with him this early in the day. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
they did lose contact like maybe 7 years ago before that, and this is what she heard
But
from
what you're saying is that you can
brother.
kind of see why it's not as simple to just call them out and
Yeah,
like
yeah,
yeah when you're
you would just like, okay, he has this habit with his brother to
but that's just the thing, right? Like that's why, like, if you try to teach a lesson, if you're giving life advice without the story,
yeah,
you're like, if something keeps repeating happening, you should call them out on the red flag. Well, obviously,
yeah,
that's an obvious answer, right? But if you give that without the context, without the story, then people hearing are gonna be like, oh yeah, no, yeah, obviously, yeah, I don't have that problem, right? Because they're gonna be like, no, I've never been in a situation where I blatantly like had to call them out. Like it doesn't work like that. That's the whole thing
yeah,
about narcissists. Like narcissists know how to manipulate the situation to make you, make you feel comfortable. Like that's the whole point, right?
yeah,
So what what happens is at that point when you're like, oh, you just notice the red flags, just call them out. That's almost like gaslighting because you don't know the whole story. You don't know the entire picture, all the little nuances. It's not just as simple as calling him out,
yeah,
right? So that's why the story matters. Because most people who
yeah,
just hears that first part without the story are gonna be like, "Yeah, this woman is so stupid. Why is she doing that? Why is she letting this guy?" Blah, 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 blah. Like, yeah.
yeah,
Well, now that you hear the story, it's a little different, isn't it?
exactly. Yeah, I'm searching for stories that most of us would kind of,
Like
okay, I
here's the
wouldn't
thing,
have done
right? Like Chris Do does like a phenomenal job at like doing this sales role play,
that.
right? Where he says, "Oh, like oh, if the client says this, then you say this, or they ask you about the budget, then say this, or oh, they just then you if the client says my budget's $5,000, well, they just find somebody who can do it for $2,500, and then do that, right? It's
Yeah,
easy, logical, of course, right? Oh, well, most freelancers listening to that is going to be like, oh, that's not for me. Like, yeah, of course I know that. Or like, they'll, or some people are like, oh, that doesn't work. I tried that. That's hard. Like that, it's not as easy as it sounds, or something like that, right? But then when I actually explain it, I said, okay, but what about this situation? They give you $5,000. You're like, okay, you found somebody, good portfolio. Okay, $2,500. Boom, boom, boom. They did the work. It comes back. It looks like shit. It doesn't look like their portfolio. Now you have to go back and forth. Another 2 weeks has passed by, and this
hmm,
person's not responsive. So now I have to go and fix it myself, and then get to the client's not happy. Now I have to go extra spend, and now I've actually ended up spending $2,500 plus this many of my own hours, so I ended up losing money. right?
Yeah.
Well, Crystal, why don't you talk about that scenario, which is what happens most of the time, right? And that's the problem. This is why, for me to teach my lesson on why, okay, if I just go up to somebody and be like, hey, that Crystal way of method of selling, it doesn't always work. It especially doesn't work for people who are creative, okay? Who are creatives, okay?
Yeah.
Then Crystal is gonna start arguing with me. It's like, why? Well, why won't you do that? Oh no, like why don't you just charge them? Why don't you charge more? Blah, blah. Well, I have experience doing all of that. So I can give you a scenario for every single one of those things. I can give you a story. And once I tell you the story, then you're gonna realize, oh, it's not as easy. Like people
Mm-hmm.
listening to my story is gonna feel something and be like, oh my gosh, I've been in that situation. That's so true. That's why Chris Doe's method doesn't work because of because what Chris Doe's method doesn't account for is human emotions.
Yeah. I
I mean,
remember
go ahead.
uh, I I remember when Marco wanted to apply his advice, like don't have prices for your project. You need to firstly investigate what's the budget that somebody has. So and it went terrible.
What's
So
your budget? $10,000? Oh yeah, that's how much we we charge. Like that's not as easy as to do.
well, so he actually he wanted to try that out because if somebody has I don't know like a construction company, it's not the same budget for maybe I don't know mom like young mom that is trying to build her toy business like she's creating like handcraft toys like it's not the same thing and so one musician wanted asked him for his services and he said like okay so you have like gigs with your band okay how often you have your gigs so he didn't reply like okay what is he charging so he wanted to investigate first and he definitely see his strategy through and he sent him some voice message like what a f you are you think you're doing so you want to kind of investigate how much money I make so that you can charge me more so screw you I don't want to do anything with you and he was like okay this went
No, yeah,
well
that's what I mean. Like that's why a lot like not a lot of people are pathological liars. So it takes unless you're a sociopath, whatever you're trying to do, whatever deception that you're trying to do, people are gonna see it right through you.
yeah
Unless you're like a professional liar,
yeah
you know what I mean? And that's why like that the thing that Chris Do is teaching doesn't work for a lot of people in the creative industry. Because the reason why we are a creative industry, the reason why I'm a designer and not a salesperson, is because I'm not good at lying. It's not because I'm not good at talking. That's why I became a designer. Now you want me to do be a salesperson? Like that that's
yeah
basically what Chris Do is doing, right? It's like I became a designer, so then I don't have to be a snake oil salesman. And now you want me to be a snake oil salesman? Now you're telling me that I can be a better creative by being a snake like that whole system doesn't like but the thing is my original point is those are the things that that's why I tell that story. You see how I give that example of like, oh, what if I charge $5,000 and pay this 2,500? Blah, blah. I give you that whole scenario of like, oh, and then going back and forth and losing money from the project.
hmm
That things like that has actually happened to me many times, and that's why when Crystal was saying that whole thing, I was like, oh, here's the problem with that, right? And I already knew why that wouldn't work for me. I'm sure it's for some people it'll work, but for majority of designers it's not going to work, and here's the reason why. But if I tell that entire story with the going back and forth with the client and going back and forth with this and then like hiring this designer, oh this didn't work out, hiring like all of that whole story, then people are going to be like, holy shit, yeah, that's what happened to me. But until I draw a picture of what freelancing and outsourcing looks like, they don't actually understand. They don't actually see the
Yeah,
problems until, and that's the beauty of storytelling.
I cannot agree more. So definitely. And I like what you said, that there are not so many lessons there. And some few times I was thinking about maybe we can list lessons and
Yeah,
having.
that's what I'm gonna do. Like, for example, a lesson is, um, like for me, one of the biggest lessons in life is, um, I don't know if you heard this quote, but like, if you love something, let it go. If it comes back,
Mhm.
then it's yours.
Mhm.
So one of the biggest lessons that I learned is, the more you try, the less you're gonna get it. The less you try, the more you're gonna get it. We've had this conversation before. I told you about like how, like, if you really 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 want something too badly,
Mhm.
most likely you're not gonna get it because you're not ready for it. By the time you get it, by the time you are able to get it, you probably don't even want it that bad. To give you an
Mhm.
example, when you were 5 years old and I give you $100, or you were like, oh, I want $100, like, you're never gonna get $100 because you want it too bad. But right now, do you think you can get $100? Yes, you can, because you don't want it that bad enough.
Mhm.
I know it's like counterintuitive, but the reason why is because, if let's say I'm starting out as a, um, if I'm a 22-year-old therapist, and
Okay.
I want to become the most famous therapist in the world, right? I want to be the number one therapist in the world in 20 years or whatever it is, right? Now, for me, like, making $1 million a year as a therapist, like, I want it so bad because I want to be the number
Mhm.
one therapist in the world, right? But I'm
Yeah.
not gonna get it. 5 years later, 10 years later, I might get it, but that by then, the $1 million means nothing to me
Yeah.
because by the time I got there, I deserve it. Like, we're always gonna get what we
That's
deserve.
true.
That's why whenever you want something too badly, most likely you don't deserve it, and that's why you're not gonna get it. Do you understand what I mean? So all of that is to say, okay, so the lesson here is that the more you try to get the harder you try to get something, the more you're gonna chase it
Mhm.
away. The less you try to get something, the more you're gonna get it. Right now, some people are gonna be like, yeah, but this case scenario is clearly not it. Like, I'm gonna tell you the same thing, Jelena. Just go ahead and go fucking spend 5 minutes a day and just say something into the video for 60 seconds. Just post it. Who cares? Just do it. Okay.
Yeah.
When I say that, you're gonna be like, and I'm gonna say that because, oh, just do it anyway. Because right now you're not gonna get it because you don't deserve it. But at some point you are gonna deserve it and you're gonna get it. And you're gonna be like, son, no, that's not true. That's not what's going on here. This situation is different, right? That's why I have to give you a story to prove that, no, the situation is exactly the same.
Mhm.
To make you see that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Something like that is what I'm trying to say there. But anyway, got sidetracked again. So what I'm trying to say is this. So in this situation, so now I'm gonna talk to you about the social media thing, make content creation thing.
Okay. Just one short thing. you said you're starting to create lessons. Where in your note, in some
Yeah, I'm gonna post them all in circle.
okay,
But
where are
I'm
you,
trying to. I'm just
where
like I'm just
where
writing them like in an Excel spreadsheet because it's
how many lessons you have so far written?
a lot. But that's the thing, like 20. But the thing is, it's not like it's actually the lessons are a hierarchy.
Really?
It's not like just that.
Can you show me?
Um, I mean, it's not in a hierarchy right now, but
Okay.
it's basically like this, right? Like for example, on the top, um, it might have something to do with this one maybe has something to do with like kindness. But then under
Mm-hmm.
kindness, there's going to be multiple lessons. So that's
Wow.
the thing. Of course, we should be kind. Like so, or be kind to like treat others like you do the way you would be treated. That would be the lesson. That
Mm-hmm.
lesson in itself is so simple,
Yeah.
right? It could literally apply to anyone. But now I need to break it down. Okay, what does that lesson mean in a situation like this? What does that lesson look like in a situation like this? What does that lesson look like in a situation like this? And once we dig down deeper into it, we start to notice there's actually multiple lessons under here. I'm trying to give you an example. Like like the harder you like for example, the harder you try, the um like yeah, okay. Giving is the best way to receive might be the lesson all the way at the top, right? So
Mm-hmm.
what does that look like when I'm on a sales call? What does that look like when I'm on a date? What does that look like when and in this case, there's like multiple situations where giving is the best way to read. But then at which point can it backfire on you, right? So
Yeah.
underneath there's another lesson that says, yes, giving is the best way to receive, but only when you give without expecting anything in return.
Mm-hmm.
Because once you start expecting it, so that's a sub lesson under this lesson, and it goes on
Yeah.
forever like that.
Yeah. I like it. It simplifies it. It makes things more clear, because clarity is something. Things are messy, and when you have maybe clear, at least clear idea what lessons your business relate to, or what lessons actually, even though maybe I don't know what lesson I am teaching, but I'm definitely talking something that obviously is doing something to some people that are listening to that. So some
Mm-hmm.
lessons are happening there, and some examples, and probably there's a pattern there, and I'm not aware of that pattern unless someone points out that pattern, or I see pattern and I can relate. I do that. I do that also.
Yeah,
So
that's what I'm trying to figure out. But I actually think it needs to work like this. I think like let's say this is our week, right?
mhm,
Whatever, 168 hours, whatever it is, right? Like every week, I think we need to set aside certain number of hours to practice this skill,
okay.
which is completely unrelated. When I say practice, right? I don't think we should practice storytelling. Like, but the way we practice it is by making content or by writing a story about something that's
Mhm.
going on or by writing a myth truth sandwich. I don't think we should do it like that. I think there has to be a separate time when we do this. And then once we go out in the real world, because like what you're trying to do is you're trying to, let's say, learn karate, and then while you're learning karate, create something with that. But I don't think it should be
Mhm.
like that. I think what we should do is we should learn karate, practice it, and then go out and just live our life, and then just apply what we learned every day.
Mhm.
Not like Not like sit here, do this exercise so I can write this story
Yeah.
or come up with
Yeah.
this lesson. Not like that. I come here, I just do this practice, and then tomorrow I happen to be in a meeting where I learned a new lesson. It's like, oh wow, boom, light bulb came out. It's like, oh, that I can teach this lesson like this, like that. Not like try to force it.
Yeah.
Not try to force it by like, okay, what's the lesson here? Let me try to figure it out. Okay, what's the story here? Let me connect the dots. Like, because I don't think that works. I think we just need to practice, and then separately, we need to let it happen. Like, we need to use what we practice in real life, but let it just come to you, not like try to force fit a story into it.
Mm-hmm.
So what I meant was like this. So we go out into the world, and every day there's many decisions to make. Your entire life is just a series of decisions,
Mm-hmm.
right? Okay, am I going to drink coffee today? Should I watch this YouTube video or not? Or should I reply to this email now, or should I reply later? Should I call this person? Like, your entire life is a series of decisions, right? And each one of those decisions is also a spectrum, right? Should I go extreme, or should I not do it at
Yeah.
all? Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So so life is very complex. Every day you're making over 100 decisions like this, all day, every day. And sometimes you go extreme, sometimes you go like, and all different bars, like all over the place every day, right? If you try to overthink that and try to say calculate it, blah, blah, make the right decision, blah, blah, that's just not going to happen. That's not how life works. This is why I'm not a big believer of like knowing your values, knowing your why, having your mission statement, everything, and then just living. Like, it's life is not that simple. It's very complex. You know what I mean? Like, in every
Yeah.
given second, every given decision, million different other things comes into play that you have to balance out in order to make that decision. I guess what I'm trying to say is this: like, I think what we should be doing, what you should be doing, is practice storytelling, and then once you're living in the real world, instead of thinking about every little tiny decision like that, just live in the world, and then face on each decision as they come, and just use your intuition and it's okay if you made the wrong decision. It's like, okay, um here, what lesson did I learn about? Okay, I need to draft this sales email for this client. What lesson did I learn? Based on that, your actions is going to be different. You either don't send the email at all, or you spend 5 hours drafting the perfect email and everything in between. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
you shouldn't have to sit there and calculate what is best for me right now for this one specific email, and then make the decision like that, and then okay, on the next email, because you have hundreds of things like these every day that you have to take care of. There's no way you can do that. But what you can do is you can practice these pattern recognition skills and storytelling skills and all of that, and just go ahead and live life intuitively. And intuitively, we're like, okay, I think I should spend about at least 20 minutes on this email. Just intuitively. Whether that's true or not, we don't know.
Mm.
But you have to live like that. And then it'll self-correct. Like, let's say you spend 30 minutes on that email and you got the sale. Next time you spend 20 minutes and you still got the sale. Next time you spend 10 minutes, you still got this. Like, your brain will try to start to catch up. You're like, okay, maybe I don't need to spend that much time. Do you understand what I mean? And that's how I think you should try to live. Now, if you do that, here's the thing. Making content is not like, okay, nobody makes content because they love to. It's like in that movie Breakup, when Jennifer Aniston tells like Vince Vaughn, it was like, I want you to want to do the dishes. And he's like, why would I want to do the dishes? Right? Well, nobody wants to make content. Nobody wants to do the dishes. The dishes are just a stepstone to something else that they really want.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? The same thing as content. Same thing with everything. Everything we do in life, there's a motive behind it.
Yeah.
People don't. Arnold Schwarzenegger doesn't go to the gym 3 hours a day, break his muscles, and kill himself because he really, really, really loves doing that, and he wants to do that more than anything else,
Yeah.
right?
What do you think our motives can be?
Well, now you're asking a very philosophical. Like now you what? Now the question you're asking is like, what is the meaning of life?
I know, son. I was
I mean,
thinking
like,
about.
are you thinking that far, or are you like?
Tell me, what's the first thing that come to your mind when you
I
think
think
about?
everyone's different, right? But a
Give
lot
me.
of people that I see,
Yeah.
I think what they do is they know that they know that they want to move to a bigger house, make more money, buy a better car, but go on this vacation, have this much financial security. Like, I think there's like a goal that they're trying to hit, like that, right?
Okay.
And then they're trying to see if like, and they're trying to map out their life so they can get there, right? So of course I don't want to go to class today, but I need to go to class so I can get this degree, which is going to help me get a job, which is going to help me get a raise and buy that. You know what I mean? I think that's how most people think, and so their decision trees are, you know, starting from, okay, I need to get this job, so you work backwards. The thing that I don't understand with most people is like, okay, what's the ultimate goal then? Okay, let's say you got this job. Let's say you're making this much money. Now you got this house, you got this car. Now what? Right? Like,
Okay.
what is the ultimate motivator?
Yeah.
Is what I'm trying, what you're trying to do, right? So for me, by the way, that's why why I was saying like you can't make content like
Just to
I
make
don't want to
content.
make content because I don't feel like it is not a good enough answer for me. But for me, it's this: everything I do every single day, I need to remind myself 10 times a day, reset, breathe, and be like, son, like the purpose of life is to live life. Like this is why I hate like the why. Everybody tells me like you need to find your why. Blah, blah, blah. Doesn't know because I don't want to because okay, let's say my why is to make a program that taught everybody how to tell amazing stories, and let's say I did it. Now what? Right? Like
Okay.
that is not my why. My why is not to change the world and make people think critically. Blah blah blah. Yeah, I mean that's all nice and all of that.
Okay.
But my
So
real why is from moment to moment. Here's what I always tell people. Don't try to build the life that you want. Don't try to create or build the life that you want like in the future.
okay.
Try to make your life great today. Because if you can't have the ultimate day, let's say you take one day, one perfect ultimate day in your life. That's the ideal day. If you can't have your ideal day today, then you can never have your ideal day.
Okay. So what's your ideal day?
And my ideal day changes.
Okay. Give me example of your
But
one.
for me, my ideal day would be every day I did something to make progress in what I'm doing. It's as simple as that.
So
Like it's so funny how you and I came to the completely different conclusion on like there is no real purpose or point for making content. If you really think about it, there's no
why would anyone then do it? I think so, but still you owe me your perfect day, and we'll come back to that. So if somebody pictures, I don't know, better house, better car, better school for their kids, so that requires more money and that requires more work. So it's kind of based, I think, at least
I know,
in
but you and
terms.
I both know that that's not the real reason. Like we can we can
Son,
we can
please
make it up and
just
say
give
we're
me
doing it for our career. right? We're doing this for our business, right? It's an investment for our business, for our career, is what you're saying. Like that's one of the reasons, right?
I didn't say that. I wanted to say that at least to some degree, this is based in fear for security, for safety. So that's why people want to have more resources to gain more,
Hmm.
like a squirrel preparing for winter. So they kind of try to get as much hazelnuts as possible. So that's based in fear.
Don't you think that everything we do is based on fear? If you want to look at it like that, if you want to really look at it that way, like a squirrel, I mean, like we had this conversation, right? In our entire gene, our only goal for our gene is survival. So there's only two things to do: make babies and survive until you make babies, and then once you make babies,
Yeah,
make that baby survive. That's the only goal,
yeah, life
right?
in that way, yeah, life is suffering. So life is torture and suffering, and you need to survive through the
But what I'm
life.
trying to say is that
So,
the reason why we make content so that we can get clients and blah blah blah, all of that, yes, that's driven by fear, but it's driven by fear because we want to take care of our offsprings, and we want them to survive and them
yeah,
to have kids. So
yeah,
ultimately, that's why I'm saying that's not a good enough of a reason for me. Because
that's
like you
why.
don't have, without social media, there's, why don't you go invest in something? Why don't you go, like, there are other ways to generate wealth without social media, is what I'm trying to say.
Do you think that if somebody could get more money without social, that if people would know that they could get more money without social media, that they would still stay on social media?
Yeah, because I think there's two things people want. People want money and fame.
If people could have more money if they are not on social media but on TV, and if they are in talk shows that
Yeah, I
are,
mean, it happens. I mean, it happens on social media. There's so many social media influencers who don't really make money, but they do it anyway just because they like being famous.
yeah, okay, okay. So do you think, let me just think about the question. So if everything is based in fear, I understand that, then people are driven by that fear for security, so they want to gain more. um, but the truly what impresses me is, are those people that are doing that because they enjoy it. Because there are many people that are doing things because they enjoy it. They're not, they could even do something without having any money. You have artists, for example, that painters, like in I don't know, they are poor, but they enjoy it, and they can have enough money for their own survival, and that's it. So they are much more interesting to me, like how they do what they do, than people that do things based in fear. So that's why I asked question, like, how, is there any other motive that we have, or I was just thinking out loud, to do the same thing without this fear, because obviously in
No.
some cases fear is not enough
The only
motive.
difference the only difference is this is the thing that I'm doing right now is gonna give me that outcome immediately, or is it gonna give me the outcome a year from now, 10 years from now, or 1,000 years from now through my grandchildren? That's the
Okay,
only difference.
well then I'm not behaving rational. I'm definitely not behaving rational. This is why I'm confused to myself, because for me it's fine to sit and read and talk about psychotherapy and to pay attention to so many little things because for
Yeah,
some
but
reason I do
you
it.
feel fine. You also feel that fine about sitting in front of your TV and watching 3 Netflix episodes in a row, right? I mean, like you do that because you want to also, right? The only difference is like the delay in the gratification. Everything we do it because we want to. Sometimes we do something like, for example, because we want something next year.
Yeah,
Sometimes we do something because we want it now. But at the end of the day, I think we're wired to do things in order to avoid something else, right? Like
so your
otherwise we
hypothesis.
would just watch Netflix and eat pizza every day, all day, every day, everybody in the world. Why do anything that's hard?
I'm what I wanted to say it is that I'm doing things that are hard and I'm not expecting results to come like tomorrow. And the whole thing with psychotherapy and with my process as I started working for free with students, and eventually this became substantial thing for me, and it's still going on even though I don't do any marketing. By referrals by other colleagues or my clients, I get new clients. So
Mm-hmm.
this is working, and I was improving with belief that it will pay off. If I'm better at this, it will happen, and it happens. So now that jump from like working in Serbian to work with foreign clients and to charge more and to post more content to gain that, this is something that for some reason in my brain doesn't add up.
You don't have, it doesn't have to add up. I think that's the problem, is that you're trying to add things up. I think it's the problem because like the world doesn't work like that. The world is not a perfect mathematical equations where you can perfectly add up and that makes sense. That's a good return on investment. That's a bad. I don't think that's how it works. Like like it already went wrong when you said like this is working for me. What does that mean?
I mean,
What does that mean to work for me? What if I told you that what if I told you theoretically you should be making 10 times more money than you are right now? Is it still working for you? No, it's not working for you, right? So even the term this is working for me is not really a great measure, right?
probably.
All I'm saying is this, right? You can do the bare minimum and let's say the bare minimum will bring you this much money, right? Let's say.
Okay.
But then let's say right now you just let go of the fear of because right now I can still sense from you. Yes, I want to do what I want to do, but I also want some financial security. Like I can still sense that. It's not like I don't give a fuck if I'm homeless living in the street as long as I can do what I want to do. You're not there, right? You're also not here, which is I'll do whatever it takes to so that I can make money, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're like somewhere in between,
Yeah.
right? And you just can't seem to pick a side. So what I'm saying is this: if you just went all in because you really love psychotherapy and without any calculating at all whatsoever, and you just started sharing a thing about about what you do on social media because you just going all out because all I care about is
Mm-hmm. To express.
whatever this is,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Then automatically the money will follow and lots of it. But not if you keep second guessing yourself and not like calculating every little decision, right? On the other hand, if you go all out, meaning like, oh, I don't want to post content, do it anyway, blah, blah, blah. Oh, I don't want to go to this meeting, do it anyway. Just go all out and do all the things that you don't want to do because it's good for business. That'll grow the business too. Do you understand what I mean? But right now, I feel like you created this little cocoon for yourself, this little safe area where you don't have to do neither,
Yeah.
which is fine because like I think you're talented, so I think you can still, you can still get by. But I mean, at the end of the day, the real question you have to ask yourself is this: why do you want to? Not why do you want to make content? Because no matter what you want to do, why you should make content is obvious to me. Everyone in the world should make content. That's obvious to me no matter what. The real question is not whether you should make content or not, but why do you want to be a psychotherapist? Like what do you want to achieve through it? That's really the real question.
I think that it's something, psychotherapy is like a puzzle, and every person is like a puzzle. So finding a way to not solve the puzzle, but kind of understand pieces and what is missing, and how for a person to see what is missing, or how a person to understand their own puzzle. So to kind of understand that puzzle for the person.
Mm-hmm.
This is what is something that I get. It's, I don't know, it's something that I like to do anyway, and I do that with random people. I watch random people sometimes and watch for their behavior and just think about them, that myself.
Okay.
So,
So I guess now the only thing is this. You can do you said that's what you like that's the moment to moment thing that you enjoy doing every
yeah.
day, right? That gives you meaning and fulfillment. Well, now you just need to find a way to take that and push it to the max. Because right now, yeah, you're doing that, but you're just kind of like, it's like jogging. You're just kind of like, yeah, you're doing that, but it's like a hobby. You're not
Yeah.
really taking it seriously. You know what I mean? Now I need you to push that to the max. Because now, let's say you enjoy those things every day. Like, oh, like you recognize something and you're like, okay, oh, this is how I can help this person, whatever it is, right? Let's say you figure those and those little things are interesting and it's fulfilling for you. What I would say is, how do you maximize that every single day, right? And once you think about it that way, social media now is just becomes a tool which you can use to do that, rather than um rather than a marketing tool that you have to do.
This is
And
why.
here's the thing: I at the end of the day, I don't know if just the thing itself is ever good enough. Like I know for me it wasn't. Like for me, I know that I love to design, I love to create, write stories. Like yeah, I love doing those things. But at the end of the day, I don't know if those things in itself is enough. Because what if I was born 100 years ago, where there was no computer, there was no internet? How would I get fulfillment then? If there is no web design, there is no coding. How do I get fulfillment now? Right? So I actually don't think that it's not the whatever that thing you think it is that gives you the fulfillment. I don't think it's it. I actually think it's it's the other humans that you connect with. It's like, what can I with this thing? How can I affect other people's lives? I think that's the real fulfillment. Not doing this thing, but doing this thing for someone. Like if you're a car mechanic at some point, fixing cars is going to get boring. But what's going to make it interesting is the mom who couldn't go to work because her car was broken, and you helped her with this, and you helped her get it started, and that's the thing, right?
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, you're all, if you want to talk about your ultimate thing, and that's why I don't have a goal. I don't, like I said, my goal is not like, I want to be a psychotherapist because of blah, 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 because of A, B, and C. That like that's not how my brain works. There's nothing that I want to be. What I do know is my entire life goal is, number one, I have to reset and I have to tell myself the purpose of life is to live. That is the purpose of life. Okay. And number two, um, yeah, I in my brain, I have to always say, okay, it's it it's whatever is happening today at this moment, right? So like I constantly have to stay present, and my ideal day would be if I learned something today and if I taught something today, that's an ideal day for me.
Mm-hmm.
That's really all I want. I want to be able to learn and teach, learn and teach, learn and teach every single day. And the and it's a cycle, right? Like I can't teach anything unless I'm learning something. So, but I think that's kind of like that's my idea of humanity, right? So it's not like, oh, I'm looking to build the biggest this, or I'm looking to build this. Those, all those achievements, goals, and things like that. Like I'm detached from. I'm trying to live every day for today.
Mm-hmm.
What can I do today to learn something new and teach something new? And then once tomorrow comes, what can I do today to learn something? Otherwise, I just don't think I can. I don't think I can live this life if I don't think like that.
Okay. So, I mean, I heard you, and I guess I'm in my bubble because it takes to be brave to take a leap of faith and to go into unknown and to be
Well,
fine with
maybe what you need to do is really figure out what what is the actual thing that's giving you fulfillment.
definitely like talking and exchanging, so listening, replying.
Like for
And
example, what that woman on TikTok did. Like she was telling her story,
yeah,
and I'm sure a lot of people heard that story
yeah,
and found it helpful. So I mean, that's just think about it. Like imagine you did what she did, and you were able to help millions of people. Would that be fulfilling? So that's why it doesn't. That's why I'm trying to like figure this out, right? So do you understand what I mean? Because
yeah,
you just said like you don't enjoy doing the social media thing, but you also said if you did that, it would be fulfilling. So you see what I mean? I just think that you're not looking at it the right way. I think you're looking at it from the perspective of tools, technology, and process and things like that, and you're not looking at it from a perspective of it's like what is the actual thing that I want.
yeah. I guess interaction. So probably.
And let me ask you this.
Hmm.
Here's the thing, right? Like I could be the most passionate about making websites and all of that shit in the world. Like let's say I'm really passionate about personal branding, blah blah blah. But if I'm doing is I'm working with like, you know, like part-time coaches and like helping them set up their Instagram and blah blah blah, then I'm not really doing it at the highest level, right?
Yeah,
The reason why, like, because I work with people like Gabby Bernstein and Jay Shetty and those people, like I know how things operate at that level, and I know things that people at that make this level of websites don't know, right? So the higher you go, the more opportunity you have to work at a higher level, right? So if you really want to, really solve this, these major problems in the world, psychological issues and all of those things in the world, wouldn't you be able to work on the most complex, most fulfilling projects and the most the most breakthrough research, the most breakthrough clinical trials, the most breakthrough studies? Like, wouldn't all of that be able to do at wouldn't you be able to do all of that at the highest level if you had some sort of credibility, and if you had some sort of network of where people know who you are and things like that, right?
Yeah.
So I think you really need to figure out not like what is the role you want to play. This is something I always tell people. Don't stop trying to figure out or focus on what you want to be, but rather focus on what you want to do day to day. And the difference is this: like, if you focus on what you want to be, what you're doing is you're focusing on, like, I want to live in this kind of house, I want to dress like this, drive this kind of car to work, and work like this. That's who you're picturing. Like, who would I want to be? When you're focusing on what you want to do, you're like actually thinking about the day-to-day tasks, right? Like, okay, oh my gosh, like, imagine I can just imagine you could post an Instagram story with a question, with a poll, and boom, and grab data from like 10,000 people right away, and you can ask questions, and you can like try to figure out, oh, I wonder what people think about, like, and you can just do these like psychological studies and teachings and all of that, just like that. That's the thing that you're doing, right? So there's a very clear difference between the things that you do and the person that you want to be. And I think a lot of people focus on who they want to be, not what they want to do day to day.
True. That's why I have this opportunity for you to debunk my myths every time. So thank you for
Content
that.
creation is not like this. Content creation is not like content creation in itself is not like, oh, I like content creation, oh, I don't like content creating. That's not how it works. Like, everybody in the world can hate content creation, and everybody in the world can also love content creation. It's not about content creation, it's about what kind of content you create.
Really?
Do you understand what I mean? Yeah.
No.
Yes.
I was thinking about my office as you were speaking, because you said nobody, if content creation is something you need to do, so I need to clean my office and to make sure that things are fine, and I hate to do that, but I know that I need to do that because I want the outcome, as if you're washing the dishes or something like that. So you just need
Yeah,
to
but
do.
content creation is not like not like cleaning the room. Cleaning the room is very binary. It's done or not done, right? Making content is more like having a conversation, right? It's more like creating something, writing something. It's more of an act of creation. So the difference is this. That's like asking somebody, hey, do you like talking? Well, it depends on who I'm talking to.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Well, that's the same thing in content creation. Do you like content creation? Well, it depends on what I'm doing with it. Because you can use content creation to achieve the goal you want, or you can use content creation to do something that is going to get you here, which you don't care about. I mean, either way, do you understand what I mean? Like, it's because for me, content creation can be fun, but it can also be boring. It's fun if I do it the way I want to do it. Like what about that TikTok Lisa Reesa Teesa lady? Like, do you think content creation for her is fun?
Mm, I don't know.
Well, when she talks about this stuff, yes. Because when, and the reason why it makes it fun is because it's the whole Night Owl Nation thing. It's because she's talking about her life. Oh my gosh, I was dating this guy who was like a fucking pathological liar, and this happened, blah, blah. And she tells her story, and people start commenting and DMing, and we're like, "Oh my gosh, I have blah, blah, blah. I had that problem too." And then like you start talking, and you start sharing like common ground, and you start looking for solutions together, right? That's
Yeah.
what makes it fun. That's the
Yeah.
whole thing. Do you understand? That's why she probably enjoys making that kind of content. It's because she's talking and she's having a conversation and she's she's trying to further this area of topic which she has interest in. So same thing. Like for you, social media is going to be boring if you try to do it like every other social media coach.
Mm-hmm.
But it's going to be fun if you focus on the people. I just don't think that when you make content, you're not really focusing on the people. And you're probably like me in a sense that, like, I'm one of those people that's like out of sight, out of mind. If somebody is like trying to get something from me over the phone versus you're sitting in front of me and you're trying to get something from me, the person who's sitting in front of me is going to get it way more than this person. Because
Mm-hmm.
for me, it's like it's really out of sight, out of mind, right? So there's a huge difference between me sitting in front of somebody one on one helping this person versus me helping 10,000 people with a
Yeah.
post. And with me helping 10,000 people, it doesn't feel like I'm helping anyone. It doesn't feel like anything. It just feels like I'm in the dark, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if here I'm only talking to one person, but feels like I'm making a huge difference,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So when it comes to the emotions, I feel like I've done a lot more talking to this one person
Yeah.
than making this piece of content. But the reality is, this actually helped 10,000 people. This only helped one person. So the reality is, this was actually more impactful. It just doesn't feel like that to me because I don't get that immediate feed.
So do you think it's important to feel like it or not?
Yeah, it's important to feel like it. And that's why I say the engagement is just as big part of it.
Mm-hmm.
That's why, like, I think it's so important for us to go on stories, post, ask questions, have people DM, keep that conversation going, comments, DMs, just keep that conversation going as long as you can. I think is important, and I think the way it works is the one who's more desperate has to keep the conversation going. If somebody wants to sell to me and they're desperate for sales, they're gonna have to keep calling me because I'm not gonna call them, right?
Yeah.
So when you're starting out is when you're most desperate. So when I was starting out, I literally DM'd everyone. Every single person who followed me, I DM'd them and I asked them, like, literally for the first 2,000 followers I had, every person who followed me, I sent them a DM and I said, "Hey, what type of content do you want to see?" Like, blah, blah, blah. And I'll actually have a
No
conversation with them.
way.
Yeah,
You did it. Why haven't you mentioned that before?
I have. In
I'm
the
hearing this for
I'm,
the first time.
no, remember, like I did that whole master class about engagement, how you should reach out to people and things like that. You should go watch that, by the
Yeah.
way,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
that will be super helpful for you. But like that, so that the human connection, the conversations we're having and things like that is the bulk of it. So when you start out, you have to do that, and because you're doing that, it's kind of like when you go on circle and reply to comments and see people on DM, like, or that small group leader group chat. You're gonna start to feel like, okay, this is not nothing. This is not just set it, forget it, and I don't get any feedback. It it's gonna get to a point where it starts to feel you start to feel that connection.
Hmm.
You start to feel that, like, maybe not like when you're having a one-on-one conversation with somebody in person, but it's gonna get there. And then once you start to feel that, then because right now I have a feeling that you're looking at social media like, oh, I can post all I want, nobody sees it anyway, so it doesn't matter. It's like it's going to this like it's going to this deep dark room where it's gonna stay and nobody will ever see it. That's
Yeah.
how you're thinking of it. But the truth is not, right? Because when you post it, people are seeing it and they're reacting to it, and wow, they're liking it, they're commenting, and there's so obviously it's not. People are seeing it.
Tell me this, please. So, how long did it take you to send to DM to 2,000 people? If this was what you did,
Well, I did it every day.
for how many people?
I mean, obviously in the beginning it's just one or two people a day because there's not many followers. But once it got to like 20, 30 followers a day, I was still doing it. I would
Okay,
reply to 20, 30 people.
and they would reply you back. So then you kind of,
Not all of them, but some of them, yeah.
and it's worth it.
What I'm trying to say is like there is this like when you're on Instagram or any other social media platform and when you have this communication going, there's a different relationship you have with the app.
Okay.
Like you almost treat it like, okay, these are humans, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
then it starts to become fun, and then you start to have conversation with them, and you start to like. So I guess what I'm trying to say is like the only way you're gonna truly feel any kind of fulfillment from creating content is when it becomes two way.
Yeah.
I
Definitely.
just don't think that one way will can ever be
Okay.
fulfilling.
So tell me. So if I have followers that are from Serbia, and I have followers from Night Owl Nation, and I have followers that are psychotherapists, so we know each other or something like that.
Hmm.
And so, should I send DM to everyone, like literally even psychotherapists, um, or to choose those that are?
No, I DM people who follow me.
Yeah, 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 yeah. So those people that follow me, there
Oh
are
yeah, I mean
no.
don't go back and you don't have to go back and DM them, but if somebody new
Oh,
follows you today,
okay. Okay.
DM them today and say, "Hey, thank you so much for following me. Like this is the kind of post I post. Like, let me know if there's any, specific things you want to see or
I
something
see.
like that."
So not to old followers, but to new followers.
Yeah,
Okay.
every new follower.
Even if it's from Night Owl Nation.
Yeah, I
Okay.
mean, you just gotta get it. There's no rule. It's not like there's like a rule, right? Like it's all I'm trying to say is, I mean, this is like what I said. That's why life is very complex.
Yeah.
Life is making hundreds of decisions every day, and every one of those decisions has many different levels of how you can, gradients of how you can make that decision. And it's so complex. So there's no way that anyone could give you like any kind of instruction, step by step instruction book on how to do something in life. That's just not how it works. And I think you'll become much happier once you let that go. Once you let go of this ideas that there's a proper step by step instructional way to do things in life,
Yeah.
and you just live life.
Okay. Okay. I will live life.
Yeah. And
um.
and, and I, like I'm social with the social media thing. I'm telling you, you have to. The only way you're gonna, yes, you do have to do it. You have to get it to a point where you do it because you enjoy doing it. You find it fulfilling, even though it's hard work. You find it fulfilling. You find that it's doing something for you, right? In the long run. And I think the only way you'll feel like that is if you actually start to make two-way. Make
Yeah.
social media two-way, not one-way.
Yeah. Okay. So before we finish for today, I would like we passed by this part of you sharing your lessons that you made. If you want,
Which lessons?
list of lessons you made.
Oh no, it's not done yet. I mean, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna go over it on Sunday, and then we're gonna keep adding to it. But those things are not gonna make sense
But
anyway.
I want to see when it's like work in progress.
It's still gonna be work in progress on Sunday. It's a lot more complicated than you think. This lesson thing. Why are you so obsessed with the lesson, by the way?
I want to hear like what are lessons you came to. I'm excited to see it, to hear about it.
I'm sure all the lessons you've heard it before. Like if you go on Circle and you see the story bank, like some of them are there.
Okay, I mean, if you don't feel comfortable to share it, no problem. Even though I would like to, and I guess it's good enough for the work in progress. More than good enough. But
Yeah, I mean, I'll share it with the Night Owl Nation first, and then
okay.
we'll work on it. And then I don't know if I'll ever share it publicly because this is kind of like our,
Okay.
intellectual property,
Intellectual
somewhat.
property. So this Sunday service, it's like prime time for that.
Mm-hmm.
Well done. I'm looking forward to Sunday service because sometimes it's so nice when somebody tells you something you already know, but you hear it, and then you're, it was there all the time, but you
Yeah,
are reminded of that.
they're all like they should all be like that. I don't think these lessons are. If I have to teach you a life lesson that you didn't know at all, it's like brand new that you can't even relate to it. That means you're not learning anything.
Yeah.
Like you're not gonna learn anything unless you feel like, oh yeah, I feel that way. Like they have to relate, otherwise they're not gonna learn anything. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
All right, Jelena.
Thank you for today.
Good talk as always. Great
Yay.
seeing you.
Great
Have a
to see
great weekend. I'll
you
see you on
too.
Sunday.
Yes. You
Cheers,
see you all.
everybody. Thank you.
Bye
Bye.
bye.